I'd like to call this meeting of the Clay County Commission to order. This evening we have Chaplain Jerry Kane who will lead us in prayer. If you'd like to come forward. And by the way, for Jerry and also anyone else who comes up to address the commission, be sure that when you do, the green light is on the microphone. Speak clearly into it, state your name, and then proceed with your remarks. So, Chaplain?
The green light is on. My name is Jerry Kane. I would like to do a parable and a prayer. It was a nippy December afternoon, near quitting time and already practically dark, as they patched yet another pothole and graded yet another ditch along a Clay County road, when a classic tune by Willie Nelson was interrupted by this announcement. Now hear this, now hear this. That same nippy December afternoon, near quitting time and already practically dark, in the main building, they listened patiently to yet another citizen who did not understand why this property tax had to be paid in December when they needed a trip to Florida to see grandmother who was ill. The office muzak and the belabored conversation were interrupted with the announcement that said, "Now hear this, now hear this." In yet another building on that December afternoon, near quitting time when it was already dark, the commissioners met to review the agenda and thank the senior administrator for her effective service. And the chatter was interrupted with an announcement that said, "Now hear this, now hear this." In the outdoors, in the office, in the boardroom, they stopped enough to hear the same message. Now hear this. Now hear this. I have come to announce to you that over in Excelsior Springs, in a tool shed, out behind the Elms Hotel, a baby has been born. And this baby will grow to become a wonderful counselor. Almighty God, everlasting Father, and the Prince of Peace. And you'll find this babe wrapped in Pampers from the Carney food pantry and laid in a used crib from Inasmuch Ministries. And you are all welcome to lay down your burdens for an hour or so and come and welcome this King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And now we return you to your regularly scheduled broadcast. Dear Lord, help us to hear the invitation this month to take time to lay down our business, our busyness, and our burdens, and come worship the one who gives gifts of love and joy and peace and patience and kindness. May your entire Clay County find the peace that passes all understanding this month through your work and through our work as Clay County leaders assembled here this evening. In the name of that babe, we pray. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Nolte?
Here.
Commissioner Withington?
Here.
Commissioner Lawson?
Here.
Commissioner Wagner?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
Commissioner Thompson?
Here.
Commissioner Carpenter?
With that, is there a motion related to approval of this evening's agenda? Commissioner Johnson? I'm sorry, let me get back to that. There you are.
Move to approve tonight's agenda.
Motion is made for the approval of this evening's agenda. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, you are recognized to close. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson? Commissioner Wagner? Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Withington?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Next on our agenda are public comments. Are there any members of the public wishing to comment on any items to the commission? Seeing none. That brings us to our consent agenda. Administrator?
The consent agenda allows the Commission to act upon items considered to be routine and approved in one motion. These may include items that they have been reviewed by the Commission in a prior session. There will be no separate discussion unless a Commissioner requests that an item be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. There are 8 items on the consent agenda this evening. The first item is approval of the Commission meeting minutes from November 21st. And then Resolution 2024-328 is approving invoice payments for Clay County from November 16th through November 27th. There are 507 invoices totaling $2,300,707.54. Resolution 2024-322 is the transfer within a fund in the amount of $264,000 for operating expenses for the Clay County Election Board for the remainder of 2024. Resolution 2024-324 is approving 2025 intergovernmental agreement with Mid-America Regional Council Solid Waste Management District for regional household hazardous waste collection. Resolution 2024-326 is approving a cooperative purchase service agreement for term and supply with CNC Group for security cameras, door control, card access, and software support. Resolution 2024-333 is approving an agreement for executive recruitment services for the county administrator position with SGR. Resolution 2024-331 is approving a lease agreement for 4 new Caterpillar motor graders from Foley Equipment for the Road and Bridge Department. And Resolution 2024-325 is approving a term and supply contract with Audio Acoustics and Mission Electronics for audio and video services.
Thank you. Is there a motion for the consent agenda? Commissioner Johnson.
Move to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Motion has been made for the approval of this evening's consent agenda. Are there any questions or discussions? Excuse me. Seeing none, you're recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson? Yes. Commissioner Wagner? Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Withington?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
That brings us to our regular agenda. First item on this evening's regular agenda is 2024-317. Administrator.
Resolution 2024-317 is a request for waiver of fees, interest, penalties, and taxes due to a county error. The applicant is Daniel Glenn Bemis from 3425 Northeast 83rd Street in Kansas City, and I believe the applicant is in the audience.
The applicant would like to come forward, please. As you come forward, make sure the green light is on, state your name, and then you may proceed.
I'm Daniel Bemis, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to talk regarding my delinquent taxes for the last 3 years. This is not a Clay County error. I take full responsibility as I've lived in Clay County most of my life, and I know that taxes are due each year. Over the last 3 years, me and my family have fallen into countless hardships. I was out of work for 13 months in 21 for a stroke as well as surgeries, and then out of work again for 3 months in 22 due to heart issues. My wife had 12 surgeries in 24 months, and my son went through an 18-month divorce battle in Clay County that was extremely costly and time-consuming. During these 3 years, I had to take any extra income and put it towards deductible out-of-pocket costs and attorney fees. I fully understand that I owe the personal property taxes for 21, 22, and 23, and I'm working to pay those back now. I'm here tonight to ask for forgiveness for the fees, penalties, and interest for 21 through 23. Thank you.
Are there any questions from the commission? Commissioner Johnson.
So I guess I'll be the first to talk. Mr. Bemis, I'll tell you what, I read through your whole packet here, the whole report, and all the issues that you've gone through, personal and medical issues you and your family have gone through the last several years. It's horrible. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And if I had the authority to, I'd wave a magic wand and dismiss everything. All of your property taxes and everything wouldn't make you pay a dime. Unfortunately, our authority only extends to the part where there's a error on the side of the government. Obviously, there's not an error on the side of the government here. There's just a lot of just misfortune on your part. And as much as I would love to waive those fees, none of us have the legal authority to do that. And I actually wish there was a way to, in this process, to explain that to people in detail more, because you're not the first person who've come to us in this situation and asked for us to waive these fees, and it breaks my heart reading it. People in the audience have no idea what he's gone through and his family's gone through the last several years. It's horrible. And I would love to waive them. But, I mean, and our counselor's right there, our attorney will tell us every time, hey, we don't have the authority to do that unless we can show there's some kind of error on the part of the government. Obviously, it doesn't look like there is unless there's something else you have. But,
I understand. Yeah.
unless somebody else sees something I don't see. I see Commissioner Wagner's waiting to speak.
Commissioner Wagner, you're recognized.
Thank you. Well, partially, I didn't want to leave our colleague out on an island on this one, because delivering bad news is never something any of us want to do. And I want to acknowledge those issues that you have faced. They have been many, and I almost thought your name was Job for a minute because of what you have experienced, and I want to recognize that. But my colleague is correct. You know, I have seen this commission. You would swear they were contortionists trying to figure out how can we help, but this one's pretty clear, and I hate for it to be,
right.
but I want to just acknowledge that you have come forward in a spirit of goodwill. I know, again, I wouldn't wish this on anybody. I know you've experienced it, and that may not be helpful tonight. But I just want you to know that what you have told us is very compelling, and I wish we could do something about that, but I don't think we can. So I will at least try to end on a happy note, as I understand that the Packers are playing this evening, and I wish for you great victory by the Pack, and that the ghost of Bart Starr smile upon you and that team. Because I'd like for at least something good for you to happen this evening, and so that is my wish for you. And I'm sorry, I can't do more than that.
I appreciate it. Thank you for letting me talk.
Commissioner Lawson.
Yeah, I share the thought with both my fellow commissioners. Some time back, an older lady came to us. She had suffered bad spurge of cancer and wasn't able to pay and had missed the deadline and asked us if we couldn't. I was so upset, and I said to the attorney, I said, look, I want to vote yes. What happens to me if I vote yes? Because I thought, I don't give a darn. I'm going to vote that we get this forgiven for her. He said, you will be breaking the law. And I thought, whoops, you know. And that's how severe this is. There is an actual statute that forbids us to do this unless there is an error on our part. And as you've been honest enough to say, right. It isn't. And I will tell you that we have tried to talk with all of our lawmakers in Jeff City. Why can't we have that? We should be able to have the power to help in some manner if we could. And we're going to continue to try to push that issue. But at this point in time, like I say, we would be breaking the law. So God bless you, and I wish I could do something. You have no idea how much I wish I could do something. But my hands are literally tied in this situation.
I understand.
So,
thank you.
Go Packers.
I just want to make a comment also. I'm sick to death of having these cases come forward where good people are being pushed against the wall. I'm sick of it. Once upon a time, we didn't even have the authority to do this if we had made a mistake. That law got changed in Jefferson City back in the late 2000s, about 2008 or somewhere in that range. Commissioner Johnson has been, I think of all of us, he's been a leader on this issue. Here's what I'm proposing we do, because I'm tired of hearing these stories of people who are good people and caught in the middle. And you're right, Commissioner Lawson, we have talked to our delegation to Jeff City. I think it's time what we need to do is, we're at the beginning of a session. I'd like to sit down with you, Commissioner, and devise a proposed change to this law. And then I'm willing to go down to Jeff City and start pounding on some doors. Any other commissioners, I think we need to devise some kind of a strategy for this, because this is the sort of thing that has to stop. We've got to get some relief for our people. And every time I hear one of these, it just makes me heartsick. And I guess what I'm thinking is, have we talked to our legislators? Yes. Have we done everything possible? Not yet. And I think we should do more. And like I say, Commissioner Johnson has been very vocal on trying to get this done. And I think that we need to, as a commission, have a discussion and put together a proposal where we go down to Jeff City and we say, by God, this is what should happen. And we just had Commissioner Lawson, Commissioner Wagner and I were just down at the Missouri Association of Counties. I think we ought to be pushing on them to make this a priority. Yeah. If nothing else, to at least give counties the option. Not maybe required, but give us at least the tools to do so if we can. So I think everybody is going to be behind this idea. And so let's make this a priority. Let's figure on getting our heads together and putting together some bullet points and start getting some legislation crafted and start putting our shoulder to this wheel. With that, Commissioner Johnson, I believe you are seeking recognition.
Thank you. Yeah, so obviously our hands are tied by state law, nothing we can do about it. I will say, given your story, and most people don't know the details that we're seeing in a full report, but we're talking 15 plus surgeries for your family over the past few years here. And although we can't change the fees or what you're being billed, I might suggest to you there may be resources out there that you can find that might help with this. Whether it's you put this story up on like a GoFundMe page or something like that, you might get a lot of help out there. A lot of folks who would see, hey, listen, this is somebody that needs some help here.
Okay.
To kind of fight against this government overreach to some extent. But other than that, we really can't help you at this body, even though we all would love to, but legally we can't do it. So
I appreciate
with
it.
that, I'm going to have to move to approve 2024-317 with the box mark denied.
Motion has been made for the approval of 2024-317 with a box indicating denied checked. Further discussion? Seeing none, you are recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagner?
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson?
Sadly, yes.
Commissioner Whittington?
No.
Motion passes 4-1.
Next on the regular agenda is 2024-329 Administrator.
Resolution 2024-329 is approving invoice payments for the Clay County Prosecutor's Office for the period of November 16th through November 27th. There are 14 invoices totaling $4,976.54.
Commissioner Johnson.
Move to approve 2024-329.
Motion has been made for the approval of 2024-329. Discussion? Seeing none, you are recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson? Yes. Commissioner Wagner?
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson?
I recuse myself.
Commissioner Whittington?
Yes.
Motion passes 4 in favor, 1 recusal.
Next item is 2024 Ordinance 36. Administrator.
2024 Ordinance 36 is the approval of an ordinance modification to amend the HR Manual, Section 19.2, out-of-town travel per diem amounts. Auditor Herbert is here to provide information to the Commission about this proposed amendment.
Please proceed, Mr. Auditor.
Yes, Victor Hurlbert, Clay County Auditor. Thank you, Diana. Yes, so 2024 Ordinance 36 is to update the county's travel policy. It's in our personnel manual, the HR manual. It's specifically section 19.2. The last time we updated this was in 2021 with Ordinance 25 in July 14th of 2021. Before that change in 2021, we had a per meal limit on our travel policy, a per diem, a reimbursable per diem. So county employees can go on authorized travel to a conference or training event. They keep their receipts, and they would submit that on a form, and they could be reimbursed. And prior to 2021, it was on a per meal basis. We had $10 for breakfast, $15 for lunch, $20 for dinner. And so in 2021, the thought was approached that instead of having a per meal, we would offer a little more latitude. We increased that to a $60 annual, or not annual, but daily limit for the per diem, regardless of the meal. And that includes the sales tax and tip. And the policy tip we had was 18%. I'm not sure how that figure was arrived at. So what the proposal is before you is to increase that limit to $80 a day when you're traveling on training within the state of Missouri. And for anything outside of the state of Missouri, the maximum limit for the day would be $92. And we are also proposing to change that tip rate to 20%. It's a flat rate, so it makes a little more sense. And that's something that I more commonly see as we go through reimbursement requests. This is really a change that we think is very necessary because of recent inflation. We've seen, total of meals throughout the day exceed that $60 limit. Number one, the tip amount is an awkward amount. People don't take the time to think through it, nor should they. And so, the auditor's office is stuck in a place of denying some of these requests, returning them, and that just delays things. It becomes more and more inefficient. So the proposal would increase it to $80 within the state of Missouri and $92 outside of the state of Missouri. The standard for that is from the United States General Service Administration. It's their per diem rates. That's the Kansas City metropolitan rate of $80, so that's why we picked that for Missouri. $92 was the highest rate the GSA has for other states across the United States. And importantly, the administrator had a great recommendation of, rather than trying to update this and play catch up with inflation throughout the years, essentially we'll just take the GSA rate every year, should it change, and we'll follow the same policy going forward. That way we don't have to come back here. We do something similar with our mileage. We track the IRS reimbursement rate for the mileage reimbursement. So a similar approach. So that's essentially what the policy is before you. I do have statistical information if you're interested of how much we spend on travel. We don't think this is going to have a budgetary effect or impact because essentially we're not changing the budget. We're just authorizing how much employees can be reimbursed. I did look at the state of Missouri, their Office of Administration. They've kind of gone in the opposite direction. They have a per meal limit of $48 within the state of Missouri. They used to have a regardless of meal policy. So that's just some information. I'm happy to answer any questions. I do want to thank, working with HR, Director Callahan and purchasing and all the departments, Sheriff's Office, Prosecutor. This is something, really an issue that we come across a lot, so it'd be a significant change.
Are there any questions for the auditor? Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, so this obviously was last updated in 2021. I'm not sure what happened in 2021, but something happened in 2021, last 4 years that caused inflation to go through the roof. So I certainly would move to approve 2024 Ordinance 36.
Motion has been made for the approval of 2024 Ordinance 36. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, you are recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagner? Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Withington?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Next item is 327. Administrator?
With the commission's indulgence, I'd like to do the next two items together as companion resolutions.
So, okay, we will be listening to 2024-327 and 2024-334. Is that what you're requesting?
That is correct.
Very well. Please proceed.
Resolution 2024-327 is approving a contract with Straub Construction Company for the construction of the Law Enforcement Resource Center. And Resolution 2024-334 is approving an agreement for a 10-lane shooting range at the Law Enforcement Resource Center with Action Target. So we're very happy and excited to be here tonight in front of the Commission for this project. And I would like to introduce Chris Martin. He is with Piper Wind, which is the architect firm that has been working with the Sheriff's Office and staff to design the Law Enforcement Center. And so we have a presentation for the Commission about the project and answer any questions about the process. I will conclude before you take action because I'd like to go over sort of the sources and use, the funding and the expenditures for the proposed project. With that, I turn it over to Chris.
Please make sure the mic is on and let us know your name for the recorded record and then proceed.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Chris Martin. I'm with Piper Wind Architects. And as mentioned, I'd like to give you a brief overview of the project that we've designed for the Law Enforcement Resource Center for the Sheriff's Office. What you see in front of you is an aerial map. I want to start there to kind of give you a perspective of where this project is. There's a small red dot in the center of the screen there, and that's the location of the property. It's a 4-acre undeveloped site owned by the county off of 116th Street. A little less than a half a mile west of Highway 33, about 5 miles south of where we are here at Liberty Square. You have a packet in front of you with some renderings of the project, but I'd like to walk through site plan, floor plan, and then show you some of those images. What you see here, again, is a site plan of the site. It's, again, a 4-acre area that slopes gradually from the east down towards the west. Along the south side of this property is 116th Street. To the south of that are some residential properties. To the north of this, there's a tree line and county facilities for the road and bridge maintenance facilities. You'll see that what we're proposing, again, it's an undeveloped site, is a new building and parking lot on the site. It's positioned roughly to the center of the property for intentional reasons. Off of 116th is a new asphalt entry drive, which is downhill from the vertical crest of the road at 116th. So for safety reasons, for entry and exit from that drive lane, we're down a little further from that, as well as it positions the parking lot and the building. It tucks it into the site. As I mentioned, it's a sloping site from the existing gravel road, which I'm identifying there, down towards the west. As you come in off of the entry drive, we've got a small monument sign designating the building, and then an asphalt parking lot for 30 cars. Very limited exterior site lighting, except for some lights on the building for safety and entry and exit of the building. But for the most part, the property will be used during mostly daylight hours. On the north side of the parking lot is a small trash enclosure, which is screened, and then a tall screen privacy fence along the north side of the parking lot, which just provides a little bit additional screening for some storage containers and a generator, and anything else that might be beyond the parking lot, so that there's nothing in the view of the street. We're regrading the site and providing landscaping around the parking lot and building. Along 116th Street, we're adding a number of trees. There's maples being added, as you can see, along 116th. There's some redbud trees at the entry of the drive and some black gum and a number of annual and perennial landscaping around the parking lot to beautify the site. The building itself is oriented in the north-south direction. It's a one-story building, wood-framed, with a gable pitched roof, asphalt composition shingle roofing, intended to be consistent with some of the neighborhood properties. There's a septic system that runs to the west from the building and enters into a septic field on the northwest corner of the property. We are also introducing some swales with rock covering to take water from the, thank you. Take water from stormwater runoff around the building under the entry drive and down to the northwest corner of the property. Next, I'm going to go to a floor plan of the building. And again, I'll show you some exterior renderings here in a second. I think I can zoom in here. I'll start with the north end of the parking lot is where the building entry is. There's accessible parking and a covered porch area there. There's an entry vestibule that leads to a lobby space. Might be helpful if I zoom in a little further. There's a visitor's lobby, a hallway, a main hallway that leads to a large classroom space with tiered seating for training and classroom activities. Below that is a large open training room that the sheriff's office will use for tactical training or virtual reality, augmented reality type training. There's a office space, open and private office space for 6 full-time employees and a small private restroom for them, as well as use by visitors that are at the lobby. There's a small break room for the office area, as well as a counter that serves visitors that are on breaks from the training space. And then there's 2 large multi-user restrooms that serve the entire facility. At the end of the building, the final spaces are some storage, a janitor's closet, and then we've provided a private mother's room near the back of the hall, and there's a second entrance or exit to the parking lot. As I said, this portion of the building is a wood-framed, gable-roofed, one-story structure, primarily used for administration, training, classroom services. At the north end of this building are some of the support spaces for the firing range. There's an armory here, which is a secure space for some weapons cleaning and storage, and there's a vestibule that provides a secure access to the range itself, as well as some storage. If I move a little further to the north, the slightly more narrow portion of the north end of the building, again, this is on the far north end of the site. The overall facility is more than 80 feet from the road, is the tactical firing range. It actually is a solid, fully grouted masonry walls, two whites, with additional ballistic and acoustic materials on the inside for obvious reasons. So it's fully enclosed. It's a 10-lane firing range. And at the end, there's a backstop with dust collection. Along the back side of the building is the mechanical and HVAC equipment for the range, as well as the building itself. Beyond the screening that I mentioned, they've got a generator so that the office areas and classrooms can operate when needed in the time of electrical outage. And they've got some storage facility, storage containers on the back side of the building. With that, I'd like to show you some exterior renderings of the building. In addition, we have a board over here with some material finish samples for the exterior. There's, as we see the exterior, there's some stone, lap siding, and I'll walk through that as we look at a video of the exterior. So I'm going to start here, and again, you have a packet in front of you with some still images directly from this video. And so what you see here is a three-dimensional rendering. This is standing at the west end of 116th Street, looking east up the road and the hill to the property on the left-hand side, and there's some residential properties to the right. They are heavily screened with trees and berm. As you proceed east up the road, again, you can see we've currently the property has really no landscaping on it. It's an open, undeveloped site, so we've added trees along the road as well as landscaping around the parking lot and the building itself. Again, it's positioned sort of in the center of the site so that it's tucked down as opposed to at the high end or at the low. Obviously, we have drainage and stormwater runoff towards the west or the low end of the site. There's one entry drive, as you can see here, off of 116th Street, a small monument sign. As I mentioned, the only real lighting, exterior lighting, is a small light on the sign, so you can see that at night, and some lights that would be on the building facade, some sconce lights, but there's really no light poles in the parking lot. At the south end of that gable end of the one-story building, you'll note there's stone halfway up the building with lap siding and trim, again, to sort of complement and being consistent with some of the other properties in the area, some of the residential properties. As you move in and walk in towards the building itself, you can see this is the west-facing facade, so the entry to the building is down on the right. The windows are for the office areas, break rooms. And that's the entry canopy. And the stone continues around the front of the building. Again, it's a sloped composition roof. You can also see in this view some of the swales that we've created along the east and west side of the property to control the runoff, stormwater, and take that to a controlled area on the northwest corner of the site. This again is looking west down 116th Street as you come over the crest of the hill. So we've positioned the road, or the entry drive, down from that far enough that you can safely enter and exit without being blinded by cars coming over the hill. And then this is an aerial view. Here we have some interior shots. So this is the entry lobby. This is looking back at a vestibule airlock at the entry visitors lobby where visitors would be greeted. This is on the main hall, just a serving area from the break room. This is the tiered classroom seating. Couple views of that there with a podium in the front, and that's where they're doing a lot of training, and this is an open area where they'll have tactical training. This view is at the obviously the firing range, which is on the north side of the building. This is looking down range. It's going to be a 10-lane range, and this is looking back towards the front of the range. So that's all I have. Appreciate your time. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you very much for the work you've done, and of course for the sheriff and his staff working on this. Certainly, this is something that's been coming for a long time. I remember he and I having discussions about this 4 or 5 years ago, and how it would eventually develop. And I got to say, it's been a long time coming, but I'm certainly happy to see it's going the direction it's going. Did you say something about the exterior lighting on the parking lot?
So I was just mentioning that there are some lights on the face of the building, which are just small sconce lights, obviously, so you can enter and exit if it's beyond darkness, but there are no parking lot light poles per se. At the north end, there's a small trash enclosure, so we have some small, short, like bollards lights at 3 feet, but otherwise there's no overall parking lighting, but they don't intend to use the facility at night.
Okay. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes, sir. Thank you for that. A couple of questions. Is Straub also doing the range itself?
So Straub will be providing the shell enclosure for the range, the masonry walls, roof. There's a separate contractor that will provide the specialized firing range equipment called Action Target, and that was the second item on the agenda.
And then the pictures that you just showed of the range, that wasn't a 10-lane range that you're showing, was it?
It wasn't. It was an example from Action Target, which was an 8-lane range,
Right.
and this project will be a 10-lane.
Okay, and also I noticed, I don't see on the drawings, is there anywhere on this range that there's a door that a vehicle can be driven onto the range?
Let me move back to the answer is yes. I was going to just show you so there is a double door here on the range so that equipment and props and things can be brought in. They don't intend to bring running vehicles in there, but they do have vehicles that they use for tactical training so that those can be brought in from the parking lot.
And driven all the way into those lanes right there?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. And then one of the things I don't know if there's anybody here that lives across the street. They were here, the neighbors were here for one of our meetings, and the big concern is the view, the site that I think there's just 2 houses across the street there, if I'm not mistaken, was the site. And we promised them we'd do everything we could. And your company's doing the landscaping as well?
We've designed the landscaping. We have, our landscape architect has designed all of that, and Straub would be providing that, installing it.
Just know that I'm real sensitive to the view that these people see, because we promise them we'll do everything we can to put, whether bushes or berms or whatever. So I see there's a little bit of a berm there. My suggestion would be make that as high as possible. And also, whoever is handling this part of it, I would strongly suggest contacting those neighbors across the street and working with them. Say, hey, what did they envision? We had a short conversation with them here, but we told them, hey, we try and work with them the best we can to make it something that is, because that's what they're looking at. They're looking straight out their house, they're looking straight across it at exactly this. So we want it to be somewhat pleasing to them. We don't want to, I think they'd prefer that it wasn't here at all. But I think the happy medium is, hey, we'll try and make it as pleasing as we can to you. So that's just one of the concerns I know that we had when we heard from the neighbors, is just that we make it aesthetically and mostly that's just with the greenery there and the berm and what we do there. But just know that's important. I'd really like someone to contact them when they're putting the stuff out there, just to make sure that they know what's going on and that we're concerned about them and conscious of their issues. And then the last thing was, how many seats in that classroom?
It can accommodate 60.
60?
They don't probably anticipate having that many at one time, but it can accommodate up to that many.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Commissioner Wagner?
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson asked my question related to the landscaping, because I love good landscaping, as my colleague knows. But certainly, if they haven't been contacted, they should. We do want to be cooperative and collaborative in that way, and so definitely want to echo that sentiment. The other issue that I had, though, kind of maybe within that same category, was just the placement of the monument signage. It's kind of further back than I expect it to be, and especially considering what we've talked about screening of the site until you're almost upon it. I'm just curious. And maybe it isn't a concern because everyone who's going to be there knows where it is, and so it's not a big deal. But I don't know if you want to speak to just that signage placement. I'm just kind of curious as to why it's as far back as it is.
Yeah, as you mentioned, I would say most of the folks that are coming to the facility are going to know where it is.
Yeah.
But there is obviously a need to identify it and sign it. We held it back from the road in an attempt to sort of not make it quite so prominent on the road where there's residential properties to the other side. So it's still visible from the road, and you certainly, as you pull in, you know where you are.
Yeah.
But we were trying to just make it a little less prominent on the road.
And I get it. And the only reason why it kind of even called out to me was, as you approach eastbound, it's pretty plain to see the building. As you're approaching westbound, because of how you've got it sitting in the topography, you kind of see a roof, and maybe that's enough of a call to the driver who's going there that this is the place. But that's in the weeds and unfortunately, no one's going to let me out on the range unless a captain gives me some hope there. No, I'm kidding. But you know, a small issue, but just wanted to make sure it was called out for discussion tonight. But I appreciate your presentation. I appreciate the exhibits and the video you brought. It's a lot of great work. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments.
Commissioner Lawson.
If I lived across the street, I'd be tickled to death to know that I had all these officers coming up my road all the time. I wouldn't have to worry about alarms or security lights or anything. I'd be safe. The landscaping, as you have shown it, is beautiful. And I think were you to show that to the people across the road, they'd absolutely love it because it's classy as heck. The only question I would have is I'd like to know if the commissioners that wish to could be the first ones to fire on the range.
I'll have to defer that question to the sheriff's office.
That's all. It's fantastic. I'm highly impressed. We've waited so long to get it done and so many iterations. It was going to be here, it was going to be there. Now we finally found a great home for it, and plus the fact that it does dress up that area, because that isn't the most desirable area in the world, you know. So, looks good. You did a beautiful, beautiful job, and I'm anxious for all of our officers to be able to utilize it.
Thank you for your comments.
Commissioner Johnson.
2 quick comments. Number 1, there are some commissioners that I don't want to be anywhere near if they have a gun in their hand. So I'll just put that out there right now. I'll go to the range on my own. And it's funny that Commissioner Wagner brought up that sign placement, because I thought that I looked at the sign placement and I thought just the opposite of what he thought, and I think that may be the cop in me. I like it further back. I don't like it being too prominent. I don't like this facility being too prominent. It's a training facility for law enforcement. I just don't like it being a target. And any law enforcement officer that can't find the regional training center, well, we got bigger problems than that. So I wouldn't worry about the sign too much. I personally like it further back for those reasons, but just my comments. And by the way, are we doing this resolution separate, or do we do them both together?
Actually, they would be 2 different motions.
Okay.
I just introduced them together so that we could talk about the entire project together, but you will have, you could do a motion that adopts both of them if that's your call, adopting both resolutions in one motion, but it's up to you.
Yeah, I don't care. We can wait till, whatever, your call.
Yeah, I don't know that it really matters much. It might be a little bit more efficient, but again, this is a matter of relative indifference. Commissioner Wagner, I believe you were seeking recognition.
No, thank you. It actually sparked from the comment from Commissioner Johnson.
Really?
Well, yeah. No, I listen to him, but I don't tell him that I do. But
I'm going to spoil you.
No, actually, what it made me wonder was, because it is that far back and because we expect people to find it, is there a need for it, or at least as prominent as it is? I don't know if there's a value of an unmarked building for this purpose. I'll defer to those with badges and those who had badges, but I get it. It's just like, well, if it's less necessary for the reasons that were just mentioned.
If I could, a lot of discussion about that. And remember that there are staff members that will be officed out there.
Yeah.
So they will have deliveries, and so there'll be some minor activity out there that, are not familiar with where the range is. And so we want to make that convenient. And again, as you're coming over the hill, you certainly see the seal on the crest.
Right.
And so, but we felt there was value in having the monument sign with the address and at the back.
This is the opportunity to talk about minutia. I've taken it. I will be silent.
I also kind of think that having signage on there is important, because somebody may well go astray, just make a wrong turn on a road. It would be helpful if they knew that they were going into a law enforcement facility, turn around and get back on their proper route. With that, Commissioner Lawson?
Yes.
Hold on, there you go.
Thank you, love. I would like an apology from Commissioner Johnson. That was a sexist remark. I've handled the gun since I was 5 years old. I think I could do that. You should not have You
I
should
didn't
not.
mention any names, did I?
I know what you were thinking.
We'll have a shootout. How about that at the range?
Okay, you're on, buddy. You are on.
Is there anything in our ordinance about commissioners shooting at each other?
I'm going to have to check the insurance policy.
This feels like a good time to
just
talk about
was-
risk liability and risk management, so.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I need to check our insurance policy and what that disclaimer is, and if we paid our premiums, so, yeah.
Well, Commissioner, I make a point of never arguing with someone who is packing. So you do as you please, but certainly I would be circumspect about that.
So before you actually take motion on these two items, I would like just a few minutes, I'm all about the numbers, right? And so I have actually good news to share on this project, but I want to make sure there's a clear understanding of the revenue sources for this project and the budget for this project. So while you are approving two very important pieces of the project tonight, next week we will be coming back to you with some other additional contracts for you to consider when we're talking about furniture, fixtures, and equipment. And because it kind of leads into the sources, and ARPA funding is a major source of this project. And as you know, we have obligations to obligate those funds before the end of the year for the entire project. So what I'd like to do is walk you through this information because it is somewhat fluid as we go through and actually construct the project. So once the bids were open, the current projected estimate for the project is a little over $7 million, $7,087,435. There are two sources of funding for this project. One of them is ARPA funding, and that is the $5,838,214.62. As you can see, with some of the contracts that you're adopting tonight, that's not enough to do the project. The Sheriff's Office was very successful in working with the federal government and has received a JAG grant that they will be receiving. And of that grant, the sheriff has pledged $1.7 million of the JAG grant towards this project. So adding the ARPA and the JAG grant together, we have sources of $7.5 million. Now, when you go through the next section, which is the uses, I've sort of put them in buckets, and I kind of want to walk through that a little bit, whether it goes in the ARPA bucket or the JAG grant bucket. And there's a reason why. So currently, the only contract before your action tonight that has actually been obligated on this project is our architect's contract with Piper Wind for $590,000. On your action tonight, we have two contracts with a construction company. The construction portion of it is $3.498 $1 million. Action Target, as you heard, is the company that will install the actual equipment within the range and the cost of the equipment for the range, and then also the air handling part of the range. It's actually about a $1.8 million contract, and so you see that's in two buckets. Part of that is coming from ARPA, and part of it is coming from the JAG grant of $1.2 million. And then I have highlighted in green, which is in the budget, and you're not approving that, but it is a construction contingency. We've not moved a blade of grass yet. And so it is wise on a project of this magnitude, and we're doing a lot of earthwork, that we have in the budget a construction contingency, and it's $750,000. I'm going to go on down and talk about these other contracts that are in sort of the red. These are the contracts we will be bringing before the commission next week to basically obligate these funds under ARPA. One is with Cook, Platt, and Strobel, which is for engineering inspections. It's about $23,000. Contract Furnishings is the company which we have a contract with, Term and Supply, but we're working right now. We'll finalize that, but we're anticipating it's $150,000 for the furniture, including the classroom and the offices. Audio Acoustics, $85,000 to do the audio equipment within the building. And then we have CNC Group Security, a little over $62,000. That is for the card access, the security cameras, all the things dealing with the security of the building. This is green space, so we will have to do electric. And so we have coming for you next week will be almost like an easement and an MOU with Platt Clay Electric. They're going to have to bear the electric line, and we need a three-phase transformer there. That's about $45,000. And then, there's an armory in here, and so there'll be some specific type of equipment they'll want for gun cabinets, and so you'll see an agreement for that. And then there are appliances. So again, we have a break room, so we're looking at a refrigerator. We're looking at an ice maker and those kind of things, which we have a turbine supply with Lowe's. So we're trying to figure out what that document's going to look like to obligate the ARPA funds. And then we will also have services with Institute of Building Technology and Safety to do building inspections. Because of the type of building this is, we believe it's in the county's best interest to bring on specialty inspectors for this project. And that's right now, anything with an asterisk, we're still finalizing those dollars. So those are plugged in as an estimate. So you see then the total uses are utilizing all of the ARPA money of $5.83 million. And right now, we're only anticipating using $1.2 million of the JAG grant, which means the rest of it would go back to the sheriff's office for the original application that they did for the grant, and that's about, $485,000. Now, that's assuming that everything happens and that we would actually have to utilize the construction contract, the contingency. But if we don't, and in a project like this, as the project is built, there will be times in the construction phase that the team will free up part of that $750,000. So for example, when the earthwork is done and we don't run into any problems or any rocks or anything, then some of that might be released and not be held in contingency. As we come out of the ground and go vertical, we may, and not any problems. And so that will be stepping through that. And so whatever the $750,000 is not used, we would propose that that go up and help pay for Action Target. So again, the scope of this is the first bucket of money that is going to be used on this project is the ARPA money of $5.8 million. So the JAG grant, now I could say worst case scenario, we need more money because something happens. So the JAG grant could be anywhere maximum of the 1.7 to all the way down to, if we don't have to use contingency, that we may only need about $500,000 of JAG grant money to balance the project. But I wanted to explain that to make sure everybody kind of understood that we're kind of fluid with this and that we will be coming back to you next week with basically all these subcontracts with the furniture, fixtures, and equipment to make sure that we have obligations that meet the ARPA requirement. If things go over, we can move money around, but we must have those contracts approved and signed before the end of the year. And of course, anytime with a federal government and a grant, they have their stipulations also. So we just want to make sure we get everything locked in the way we can and have the flexibility to use these resources that are in the best interest for the county and for the sheriff's office. So I'm happy to answer any questions about this piece of the project.
Commissioner, I want to recognize you, but if you're going to make if it's in your mind to make a motion, okay. Just before I recognize you to speak, I've thought about it a moment or two, and I think my preference would be, if you don't mind, when a motion does come up, to have two separate motions. I think that might be advisable. With that, you're recognized.
Thank you. We talked with the sheriff about virtual reality training equipment, that kind of stuff. Is that part of that Action Target money, or is that completely separate?
No, it's not. Is that part of your JAG money? Yeah, so that's coming out of the other piece of the JAG. The JAG grant is like $2.5 million. So
So there is money set aside for that then.
Yeah.
So that's
yeah,
going to be taken
that's
care
not
of.
reflected in this project budget.
Okay. And the other question actually I meant to ask before was, are there any shower facilities in this facility?
No.
None at all? No showers, no lockers, or anything like that?
No, it just was not part of the...
Would you please go ahead and identify yourself and answer into the mic?
Chris Martin with Piper Wind Architects. No, there's no shower facilities. Obviously, we worked through with the sheriff's office all their programmatic needs, and that was not one of them.
Okay, that's something you guys don't want, don't need, don't think? Okay. Huh? Yeah, you just use the hose out back. My thought is if there's any kind of like chemical agent training or anything like that you would do there, it's tough to ride home when that stuff's all over you. But just throwing that out. The sheriff's a little smarter than I am, so I'm sure you probably thought of that. Thanks.
Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. Just kind of thinking through that contingency, it would seem part of the likelihood of its use is somewhat dependent upon the construction schedule and how long the bids from Straub is good for within that schedule. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to
No, that's
look
okay.
through this to find
And actually,
it.
I'm going to have Chris Martin come back up and talk about the construction schedule, because that's one thing that we didn't talk about is when do we anticipate breaking ground?
Yeah.
And how long is the construction going to last?
Yeah.
Chris.
If you brought others, you can bring them up too. It's,
I should have announced, Straub Construction is also here this evening.
oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
welcome.
Chris Martin with Piper Wind Architects. I'll answer the question just directly, and if there's further detail, they
Yeah.
could provide that. So we're looking at starting in February, and it's a 10-month construction schedule.
Okay, which is consistent with what we have to do with ARPA. And so I guess the only other question I have is just the confidence in the numbers that we currently have and the risk of those dollars or of that budget moving as a result of things that are totally out of our control.
Well, so there are a couple of pieces to that, right? Because there is a lot of earthwork with this particular project. And I mentioned that we have an agreement coming with Platte Clay Electric. And so that is currently their best guess. But again, depending on what they hit and, and again, we have space, right? So there could be some flexibility if we, have to move a little if they hit wrong. But we won't know that until you get into this project. So, but again, I go back to, if you look at total sources obligated is $7.5 million.
Right.
And so we're at, $7 million right now with a $750,000 contingency. So we have $750,000 contingency and an additional $500,000 of sources that were not programmed in. So I feel very comfortable that this project is actually going to come in under the total source amount.
Great.
Last question. I won't be here when this happens, and so you can
I wasn't going
you
to
can
point
blame
that
me
out.
if it doesn't, right?
And I know that your phone number will change on February 15th. I get all that.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
just trying to understand all that. And I guess the last question based on your comment is, since we don't know what's under, I presume when I hear that a phase 1 or phase 2 has not been done on the site yet.
I'm sorry, for what?
A phase 1 or phase 2 on the site, which would suggest. My assumption is you do that to find out if there is something underneath there.
Yeah, we've had Chris Martin with Piper Wind. We have had geotechnical exploration as part of the design process in order to design the grading and the septic system and whatnot.
Okay, so I'm going to knock on whatever this is and say, chances are, for Micah, well, there's the wood.
Right there.
I'll hit that. So chances are there's nothing, but you don't know until you start excavating. I understand that, but just trying to understand how confident we should be with where we are. So sounds like we're in good shape, and I appreciate the answers. Thank you.
Do you have anything else to add, Administrator?
I have no other questions other than I believe as Mr. Martin mentioned, so we do have sort of a design board over here that, we'll probably leave here. You can look up after the meeting and we'll get back to them. And certainly want to appreciate the staff, the sheriff and his staff, and Captain Sapp has worked diligently with the architect to what I believe is going to be a great asset for the county.
Thank you very much. Are there any further questions from the commission? Seeing none, are there motions attached to these? Commissioner Johnson.
Move to approve 2024-327.
Motion has been made for the approval of 2024-327. Further discussion? Seeing none, you are recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagner? Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Withington?
Yep.
Motion passes 5-0.
Is there a further motion? Commissioner Johnson.
Move to approve 2024-334.
Motion has been made for the approval of 2024-334. Further discussion? Seeing none, you are recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagner? Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Withington?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
That concludes our regular agenda. Next on the agenda, we have two items under discussion. The first one is a presentation by the administration. Please proceed. And go ahead and put your microphone on. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Dieta Jacobs, Administrative Services Officer, and I wanted to provide a little bit of an update for the Senior Real Estate Property Tax Relief Program. We are actively preparing for January 1st, which, in case folks haven't heard enough of, is the beginning of our application phase. This slide presentation is also designed so that individuals at home will be able to pull it up later and have all the information that they need at their fingertips. So I might go over some of the basics that you all have already heard. But steps started, we have taken steps to ensure a successful launch, and those steps began in 2023 in our efforts to try and get ready for January 1. We started with a question form in March of 2024 that allowed individuals to sign up for updates and to ask questions about the senior tax credit program. As of today, we've had 3,730 people sign up for updates and or ask questions. About 2/3 of the individuals were asking questions as they were accessing this form online. Up until recently, I had the privilege of being able to do that, and recently we had a member of the clerk staff take that over, and that has become almost a full-time job for him as the questions increase. We also prepared a variety of flyers. We have a standard flyer that was designed so that you could put it up on bulletin boards. We had 2,000 of those. Of those 2,000, we also sent out in the mail 200 to various organizations and churches in an effort to get that information out and have it published so that people could see it. We published 5,000 trifolds. We put 40,000 inserts in the tax bills that went to individuals that did not have a mortgage or escrow. That way we knew they were getting them. However, that meant that we still had 48,884 individuals who have an escrow that would not have received that insert. So we have developed postcards. They have not gone out yet. We are going to wait until after the tax season so it doesn't get caught up in holiday mail or any of that nature. We'll have between January 1 and March 31st for them to get that postcard. And it will come in the mail and let them know, hey, there's the tax program. Please sign up. Go to the website. The sign-up times are January 1 through March 31st. We have given informational presentations since starting in September. We've gone to 11 different locations, or we've had 11 different dates. We have provided 14 total sessions. Some of those dates we presented information in 2 sessions because we had such a turnout. There's a list here of the different places that we have gone to. Now, there are 2 events that we do not have a number of individuals that we contacted. That would be the Liberty Fall Festival, which was 2 days, and then the NPA Clay County Senior Resource Fair, and that's the Northland Professional and Aging Clay County Senior Resource Fair. That was at Gladstone. We did not keep track of how many individuals we actually contacted at that location. Overall, with the other locations in the 14 sessions, we have contacted about 1,500 people so far. We still have 3 remaining events, 2 in Excelsior. Those are now full. We touched base with them yesterday. And then next Monday night at the Clay County Annex. Similar to Monday night on the 2nd, if we have an excessive number of people or that we cannot accommodate in that building, we will hold a second session at about 7:15 or 7:30. In addition, our staff is putting together a presentation or a video we are going to post on the website and YouTube of one of the live sessions that we gave at the Northland Shepherd Center on November 20th, so that it will have some questions that people have asked, the live presentation. However, just so you know, we did have a recording of the presentation that you all received on August 8th. That is currently up, and so far we've had over 1,000 views of that presentation to, again, get additional information on how this tax program might work and how they might recognize some savings. Behind the scenes logistics has been really fun. We have worked very diligently down to which stylist works the best on these tablets for people to sign. What you see here is our first, what we call baby beta test. And the purpose of this particular test was to find out how the equipment, the hardware worked, and our temporary staff that we have hired, get them comfortable with it and taking the applications. Staff created some fake profiles so that we could test profiles. I like that word better. Test profiles of different documents, and had people from the county represent citizens coming in with various missing pieces of information and or the full amount. We were timing the event. It looks like we were initially at about 5 minutes per person. We're hoping to get that down quite a bit because of the number of people we are going to have to help. This is in the second floor conference room here in this building. Our first session, January 2nd, will be held outside of the conference or the commission hearing room here because we are having the swearing in. So we will be holding it not here because we found that there is a pinch point when it comes to trying to get people in and out, which is again, one of the purposes of the beta test. So we will be moving it to the first floor break room where we have additional seating, and people will be able to come in that door and hopefully get folks in and assisted fairly quickly. When we move from that location, it is our intent to have 3 individuals here in the back area set up, and this room being available on a Monday through Friday, 9 to 4 p.m. Availability, and people at the annex, Monday through Friday, 9 to 4, in addition to the locations that will be outside of county offices. Again, open enrollment is January 1st, 2025 through March 31st, 2025. January 1, you can start online. Who's eligible? You have to be 62 or older, resident of Clay County, own your home or have a legal vested interest in that home, be responsible for the taxes, and it needs to be your primary residence. Individuals have been told primary residence is 6 months and 1 day. However, we will not be sitting outside their home to check for that 1 day. Community application dates. These are the various places that we're going to be outside of county locations, but that will also be in addition to. So that's where our additional staff will be. That will be 9 staff taking applications on those dates when we're outside of the county buildings. Again, we will also be taking applications here and at the annex Monday through Friday, 9 to 4. Required documents. Individuals will need to have a proof of identity, valid ID with photo and age, proof of 2024 paid taxes, and if their home is in a trust or their name is not on the tax bill, proof of ownership or connection to that property. You're getting a first glimpse at the application. We didn't put the whole thing on here because we have found that folks are very, very resourceful, and we are attempting to maintain the application until January 1, so we don't have some trying to come in early. This is what you would be able to access online or on your phone. It's that simple. The application is this simple. It is fill in your name, your parcel ID number, which is on your tax bill. You check the boxes. It goes down just a little bit further. They're going to be asked if it's a primary applicant or if there's a secondary applicant. You'll have to have the ID for both of those individuals. This is the printed copy. The one that you first saw was the online copy. There are 3 versions. There's the online version that you would fill out, that you would upload your documents to. There's the online version that our staff will have access to that will give them a little of the back end. And then there's the paper copy, but they're all very, very similar. We will have copies of the paper application available at the county facilities in case someone is more comfortable doing that. If somebody comes in with a paper application, we will scan that in because it will have their signature where they are certifying that they meet all of those requirements. So and the online version will have the ability, if you have a touch screen, you can sign it or you can type your information just like you do on other forms that you might fill out online. You will receive a confirmation email. We're asking for an email address and a phone number. You will receive confirmation that you have submitted your information. And then once we accept that information and say, yes, it has been accepted, it is valid, it is what we need, then you will receive additional confirmation that it has been accepted into the program. Those individuals who come here to fill out their application will receive a small receipt with a confirmation number that says you have turned in your documentation. We have told individuals, and the information has been provided, that if you provide us with information from your trust that you believe shows legal vested interest, and we later find that is not the case, that is not on you, that is on us to reach out to you and let you know that we need something different. You did your part to apply between January 1 and March 31st. It is our goal to make sure that those folks get entered into our program. So that is the key, is that we are making every effort to try and get people to, one, know about this program, and two, to get signed up. Unfortunately, I find almost everywhere I go that not everybody knows about this program. But these are the things that we have done so far, and that we are trying to continue to do to, one, get the word out, and two, to make it as easy as possible for individuals to apply for this program and to make sure that staff is ready. Does anybody have any questions?
Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. Well, first, Dieta, I remember the first time you came to make a presentation on this, and a lot of it was, I don't know how we're going to do this. And I just want to recognize your hard work and the work of so many staff members who have been a part of this, building this, beta testing this, all this. You have done a phenomenal job, and I just want to recognize that. The more specific question I have is on the presentation for December 9th at the Annex. I noticed we are not full yet, and I was wanting to know what is our capacity, and if someone is interested in going, how should they make sure they are within that capacity and not standing out there like at some sort of Taylor Swift concert trying to buy some ticket for an ungodly amount of money. I know, but it's topical around here. This is much better. I suggest I will tell you, my parents will get more out of this than they would from a Taylor Swift concert, so you may be right. But if you can help me with those details.
Well, so on December 9th, we fill the room to capacity, and we are able to set up 77 chairs. Last Monday night, we had about 85 with the standing room, and then when that became full, or to the point where we thought we might be violating some fire codes, the collector put on her coat and gloves and stood outside and asked folks to please come back, go to your vehicle, and we will have a second session at 7:15.
Gotcha. So it's first come, first serve.
It is first come, first
Okay.
served. We do not have, as the other locations have the ability to take reservations and or to accommodate only a certain number of seats. And it was our goal to, well, one, we didn't know it was going to be quite as popular as it is. So it is our goal to be there until we get absolutely everybody who shows up informed. Are you up for a third session? Sure. There you go.
Well, I appreciate that.
We will be there until everybody who shows up is made aware, because
Gotcha.
that will be one of our last sessions.
Well, I appreciate that enthusiasm, and I only ask because I want to certainly promote that, since that is the last opportunity, but I also want to make sure I set expectations properly. So thank you very much, and thanks again for all of your work.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, I echoed that. I too want to thank you for all your work. I'm particularly impressed with, I like the beta testing that's going on and putting people through this just to work out the kinks. I think that's so important. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten online to do something and I thought, if these people would just try this themselves, they'd realize how horrible this is. So I like that, and I encourage you to keep doing that if you can. My question was, are you guys tapping in, to get the word out on this, are you guys tapping into other government agencies like other city governments and having them put the word out, or maybe even the school districts to help advertise this, what's going on? And I know I'm not necessarily concerned about just telling people they're 62 or older. I'm tell people who know someone who's 62 or older, and everybody in the school districts, either as parents or grandparents, are going to be about that age. And certainly if, I'm sure there's politicians through all the other city governments that want to tout a tax break, coming your way, kind of a thing. I just wondered if you guys have tapped into any of that yet, or if that's something we could do.
We have reached out to the area municipalities, and again, we sent out over 200 of these flyers to various organizations, churches, veterans, banks, locations like that. So yes, we have, and it is our intent that after January 1, that we then reach out to the media again.
Yeah.
What we were concerned about is if we reached out to the media too soon, they would want to apply right now. So we are not done with our push to get the information out. We're just done with the informational sessions so that we can then focus on actually taking the applications.
Well, I encourage you to get other entities to make that push for us as well.
Yes.
And I think that's it. Thanks.
Commissioner Lawson.
Yeah, I like I said the other day, I've gone to all the sessions, and I've been amazed at the number of people that have shown up. It's unreal. You can't get another person in. And when we have to turn people away, you feel so bad. But then they've held second sessions, and, a lot of the people did come back. Of course, if it's late in the evening and it gets past everybody's bedtime, they don't want to come back for that second session late in the evening. But our staff, I've said this about our staff in so many situations, but they never cease to amaze me how everybody pulled together. And I mean, it was a true team effort, I feel, and still is, because it's not just Dieta out there. I go, Tracy goes, the collector goes, our auditor goes, the clerk's office comes. I mean, it's amazing that everybody is so engaged about it, and we'll continue to follow through on that till the end. One thing I did want to say, if everybody doesn't know it, today is Tracy's birthday. So very happy birthday to you. Yeah, I hope you get lots of great presents. And what in the hell are you doing here? Why aren't you at home celebrating and having a nice dinner with your family?
He was waiting for this.
Oh, yeah, he's so dedicated. Yeah, but thank you very much for all you've done, and you're very engaging with the people, and they all seem to love you, and it's just been a super experience to see, for once, we're doing something that really touches individuals in the community that have paid all their lives through their nose, and they're finally getting a little bit of a break. It's very rewarding. So thank you very much for all you've done.
Thank you. I would like to add that right now the ball is in the clerk's court, and they are working very, very diligently. And the collector's part, and as Commissioner Lawson indicated, it's not only the clerk and the collector, but it's IT, and it's our online folks, and the assessor's office, the auditor, the county administrator, you all. This is truly a team event. In addition, we will be holding, Commissioner Johnson, we will be holding another beta test on the 10th. We sent out a request to county employees who are really eligible, so that the first beta test was for the hardware. It was about the logistics and the back end. This one is more about, can we get people in, and how are we going to move them through? So we are hoping not to have those snafus. We're hoping to get through that. And we learned a lot through our first beta test.
Commissioner Withington.
I just want to say, I've been sharing these on social media also, and the last one that I shared had 400 shares, and it went to over 7,000 people. So people are, but I want to say thank you, because when I put this on social media the last time, Excelsior Springs reached out to me, and I want to say thanks for working with them to get those meetings scheduled up in Excelsior. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Any other questions?
I guess I'll conclude the remarks if no one else has anything else to say, and that is that, everybody from the administrator on down through everybody here involved in the government has done a great job on putting this together. This is one of those things that wherever I go throughout the state, Clay County has been on this issue, as in others, has been held up as the gold standard as far as how you handle this correctly, how you make an efficient job of it, and make sure that the people are being served. The idea of going through, it sounds like twice, you've done it once, you're going to do it again, the procedures, I'm very gratified to see that is going to be honed down to a very fine procedure. So once again, this is something that I think any other county in the state would do well to look at what Clay County has done and what you folks on staff have been doing, and take that as an example of how you not only roll out a program like this, but how you professionally serve people in a broader sense. So once again, I think all of us are very proud of the job that's been done by so many of the staff and other people working on this, that it is just great to see Clay County once again doing something that is a shining example to other counties. If there are any other comments, Administrator, did you have something you want to add?
No, I'm just getting ready for the next topic.
Very good. So with that, we will go on to our next issue, and that is ARPA funding update. Administrator, please proceed.
If you give me just a moment to bring up slides. Here we go. All right, we talked a little bit earlier when we talked about the LRC about ARPA funding. The clock is ticking. The end of the year is almost here. And I think Commissioner Wagner kind of was asking about the construction schedule. This is a big project for the LRC. And just so the Commission is aware, while the funds have to be obligated before the end of the year, we actually have through the end of 2026 to spend the last dollar. And so for those projects like this one, and we'll talk about the transition facility, we have really almost 2 years to get those. Not that we want it to take that long, but should weather not cooperate, we have 2 years of construction to make that happen. So the purpose I'd like to do this evening is give an overview of where we are with the ARPA projects that have been approved. We also have some unallocated funds that I want to talk to you about this evening with some recommendations, because again, we have 2 more meetings before the end of the year, and so we have some proposals for you to consider for this evening. So with that, just to remind everyone that the county received a total of $48.5 million in ARPA, state and local recovery funds. We refer to it as ARPA. There are 2 components to it. One is a category called loss revenue allocation. And agencies had an opportunity to provide a lot of documentation on what their lost revenue was, or they could take a simplistic approach and basically come up with a formula, which is what we utilized. And so we have, of our $48.5 million, $10 million of it is in lost revenue allocation. And that's important to know because there's a lot more flexibility on how those funds can be used than the remaining ARPA funds, which must fit into an eligible category. And so we had $38.5 million that needed to be allocated into one of those categories. This slide, just as a refresher on what were those categories, this is a very simplistic definition, but one had to do with public health COVID response, economic recovery, doing infrastructure. However, the infrastructure was limited in our case to stormwater or basically stormwater or water, so it couldn't do roads, and then the revenue loss category. So with that being said, what has Clay County done with the ARPA funding since we received it? So the total amount that has been awarded to date is $47.8 million. 99 projects have been awarded over the last couple of years. Of those 99 projects, 81 projects are completed and closed. So 82% of them are closed. We have 16 projects that are currently underway, under contract, money is being spent. And so that's 16% of our project. And we have 1 pending project, and we'll talk about that, which is the transition facility. And of those 99 projects, then the chart there at the bottom to the left kind of provides an overview of, okay, if we had 99 projects, where do they fit into the categories? And so you'll see that 43 of our projects were in the COVID response. That equated to $17.5 million. So 37% of the dollars were spent in COVID response. Infrastructure is 33, and 33% of the dollars. Economic recovery, there's 16 projects for 10%, and revenue loss, there were 11 projects that totaled about 20%. Now, if anybody's doing math in your head, if you add up the number of projects, that's more than 99 projects, because we had a couple of projects that actually fit into two different categories, so they're kind of in there twice. If you want to know from a category perspective, but basically from who received the funds, the chart on the right provides that information, where basically 34% of the county's ARPA funds were provided to outside agencies, basically not the county, but agencies within the community that serve the public, whether it was other municipalities, other jurisdictions, hospitals. Then the next category or recipient would be the sheriff's office with 26% of the funds. Highway, road and bridge got 17%, followed by parks at 12%, and then 4% for the facilities, and then some smaller percentages with some of our other operating costs. And so that's in essence how we've spent the funds. Of those ongoing projects, this is a list for you of which projects are ongoing. And again, the auditor's done a great job of providing information on our website, so every resolution that has been approved, every project that's out there, so anyone can find out any information out on the county's website. But this page and the next page will tell you how much, it's not how much, but which projects are currently ongoing. So we've spent money, but so what I've showed you here is what was the original allocation to that particular organization or project and what category did it fill in. So you see that the first several are outside agencies, Liberty Hospital, sort of the countywide tourism that we did, the City of Kearney, City of Liberty, and City of North Kansas City. Their projects are underway. They just have not in a position to have closed them out yet. The remaining of these 16 ongoing projects are county projects. So one of them was the chamber remodel with all the technology and the construction and all of that. So we haven't closed that out yet. There's very little money left on that particular project, but we know that there's some sound issues, not back here, we fixed that, but I think there's still some sound issues up at the dais, and so we're still trying to work through that, and how do we improve upon that. Then we have the financial software, the Smithville Lake Waterline project we're going to talk about in just a minute. The LERC, obviously, we just talked about that this evening. And then fee booths we're getting ready to close out. The CXT restrooms and the parks we're getting ready to close out. Then we get into some of our infrastructure projects. And this is important to note because as we talk a little bit about future projects to award before the end of the year, recognize that in our infrastructure projects, just like we talked about with the LERC, all of our construction projects have in its budget a construction contingency amount. And so we hope we never get into those contingencies. And if we don't, then that means that frees up the money when that project is done. And that's important when we talk a little bit later about some suggestions I have for the commission to consider for projects. And then the last one is the transition facility, which is still pending. It's not been authorized, and we're going to talk about that, and we'll be bringing you something to consider at next week's agenda on December 12th. And I think Commissioner Lawson has a question.
Commissioner?
Just a quick question. Go back one page, please. I apologize. What did you say that was for the City of Liberty?
It's an infrastructure project. They, you're going to test my memory. I believe they were doing a water line project.
Oh, okay.
Is that right? Yeah, a water line. Because again, under ARPA for infrastructure, it had to be a water line project or a stormwater project.
Yeah.
That was all that qualified under infrastructure.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks.
So where are we financially? So again, the ARPA funding that we received is $48.5 million. We have awarded $47.3. We have encumbered $450,000 for the transition facility. So in essence, if you want to kind of allocate it, we have allocated $47.8 million. So we have unallocated $701,000. Now, of that $701,000, $214,000 of it is lost revenue category, which again has a little bit more flexibility than one that has to fall into a category. So what I want to talk to you tonight a little bit about is proposal on let's obligate those $700,000. We certainly want to be like the county to the south of us that's talking about millions of dollars that have not been allocated or encumbered or obligated. We're talking about $701,000, which we have a plan for. So, and here's the plan. The unallocated funds is $701,000 category. They're $487,000. So what we're recommending, and I'm going to walk through, I have a slide on each one of these proposals, is tourism wages and benefits for 2025 in the amount of $110,000. The Smithville Waterline project may need additional funding at $215,000. I will tell you, those bids just opened today for construction. And so John, Director Davis has not had a chance to go with the engineer and dive into it to see what can we do about that because it's come over budget. But I put a placeholder for that because it's a project that's underway, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I'm hoping when I come back to you next week, we'll have this all finalized and can lock in if this is the Commission's desire. And then the next project is digitizing and indexing the Recorder of Deeds records. You'll notice that I have $161,000 out of the category. That would be COVID prevention. And then we go into the lost revenue category of $214,000. So again, recommending to use some of those funds, about $64,000 of it for the Recorder of Deeds. And then, as we'll talk about the transition facility, even though there's $450,000 plus another $50 with information that we've received, it needs another $150,000. And so that would obligate all of the $701,000. So with your indulgence, I'll talk a little bit about each one of these. So the tourism wages and benefits of $110,000. As we talked yesterday during the budget process, for the last 2 years, when we reinstated tourism and marketing, we were able to fund not only the personnel costs, but also anything associated with what we're doing for marketing and tourism. And now in our 25 budget, you actually saw that we brought that in and put it in the general fund because we know ARPA is going away. And originally, this was not going to be an option for us, but they have changed the regulations because we have an existing position, because it is something that we have used ARPA before, because it is an eligible ARPA project, that we can use the funds for personnel costs in 2025 and 2026. So what I'm proposing here is to the Commission is that we fund the wages and benefits of $110,000 in 2025 with ARPA. The funding that we have in the current proposed 2025 budget for those wages and benefits, which is about that same amount of money, that we, after the budget's adopted, reallocate those funds, not to personnel and costs and wages, but actually set those funds aside to do marketing for the World Cup, which we know is coming in 2026. So what I have here on the screen is just some projects. We've not vetted all of these on how we would market Clay County for the World Cup. We are working diligently with Platte County and partnering with them and the cities in Clay County. One of the things we're talking about is branding and a logo of Go North Kansas City, having a website that basically talks about what to do. You know, we're going to have a lot of visitors in the area. We also know that, in Platte County has the facilities that there are going to be teams there practicing. We know our hotels are going to be busy. So there is a lot for us to do and prepare. Our goal would be on some of these projects, like doing a videography and having videos that would play in the hotels, on the hotel channels, while people are there, that after the FIFA, it can be modified a little, that we can continue to use as marketing materials for the county after FIFA is done. So we're proposing that we want to use some funds here in 2025 to start doing more marketing with our partners in Platte County and the cities in Clay County. The Smithville Waterline project. So just as a refresher, we have currently allocated $642,000 for this project. The design costs have been $115,000. Remember, this is to remove and cap the water line that goes under the lake where we've had numerous water breaks. It's very expensive to divers to fix it. And so to basically reroute and not go under the lake to provide water at Smithville Lake. And so we have cost to Water District number 9 because they have to do improvements to bring us water. And then the county, which is what we just opened today, is we have a construction to construct our water line to connect with Water District number 9. And so you see there, again, hot off the press of the opening of bids today with the low bid, the total costs come in at $857,000. So it is a project deficient of about $215,000. Now we're going to scrub that. We're going to see what we can do about that. But that is a project that is probably going to need some additional funding, maybe not to the extent that this amount is. But we will, if it is the desire of the commission, we will scrub that and come back to you next week with what that number really needs to be. For the Recorder of Deeds project. So this one is digitizing all the books downstairs in the Recorder of Deeds office. It also is indexing all of the land records, which is about $600,000, indexing the marriage licenses from 1822 to 1949. So this project is a little over $1 million. So the two numbers that I showed you on the first screen of lost revenue and category money total $225,000 to put towards this project. This isn't, there are several reasons why I'm recommending this. First of all, it certainly meets the requirement of COVID. If we put this information digitized, then all the public will have access to get it and they don't have to come in. Our staff and anybody internally will have access to that data. So it certainly fits the intent of funding with COVID and making information available. The second issue on why I think this is an important project is because of the improvements we have done in this building. We're very grateful that the boiler and everything's been replaced. It's more efficient. But we also know it's changed the environment in this building. And it's not necessarily conducive for the books that we have downstairs in the Recorder of Deeds. And while they have put in new processes of wearing gloves and working with the books and cleaning the books on a regular basis, you know, it's not the best way to operate and it's not the best environment for the books. And so by doing this and digitizing them, we can remove the books and put them in a storage facility that is more conducive for those books and preserve them. The third item is this particular contract is such, and we did a formal RFP for this and have a vendor selected and are ready to bring to you a contract. But the way that it is structured is there is a price agreement. And so the vendor will do as much as we have money for, and then if we get more money, they'll do more books. If we get more money, they'll do more indexing, right? And so the reason I feel this is a very important project for us to have is as our construction projects finish, our water lines, our stormwater projects, and we don't get into the contingency and there's money left over, we can move it into this project legally under ARPA because it's an existing contract and we can continue to add to it. And so I think it's important that the county have a project like this is ongoing, that through the next year, 18 months, as projects close, we have the ability to capture those savings and put them on this project and do a benefit for the public and not be required to return those ARPA funds. And the next one is the transition facility. So the commission may recall, we talked about it yesterday in the budget process with the judge. This is a project that she came and talked to the commission about some time ago. Back in December of 2023, the commission authorized funding out of ARPA to acquire some property that the judge had identified. And so we have $450,000 of ARPA money, and we have another $50,000 that is from ARPA, but is not part of the ARPA allocation, but still has to be spent like ARPA does. So there's a total of $500,000 there. And so, as I said, you know, in December, we were all working towards a project and buying some real estate of an existing building that the judge had selected that felt that they would meet their needs. Unfortunately, after several months, it was late February, that we were not able to reach an agreement with the property owner. In fact, we're informed that they removed the property from selling it, took it off the market. So then the judge, as you heard her yesterday, she spent a lot of time, her staff, we did too, also looking for other parcels that would fit their needs, including she engaged in talking to some realtors, and either one, the projects that might work are way out of our budget, or two, it was somewhat comparable, but by the time we found out about it, there was already an offer on it. Market was just moving that quickly. So then we met with the judge and said, okay, we're not finding anything, so let's look at step 2. So step 2 was looking at the existing building that they had used in the past that we basically had taken out of operation because of structural issues, and said, okay, let's get some quotes to see what it would take to fix that building and make it ADA accessible. It wasn't ideal because it certainly does not fit their needs. It's too small for today's usage and certainly wouldn't carry them into the future. So we got some quotes on that, and we actually came back to the commission and talked about that also and said, you know, this price seems unrealistic, not the best use of taxpayer money, especially fixing a building that does not work for the needs that we have. So that was sort of the consensus. So then we worked with the judge and said, okay, what if we took down that particular facility and brought in a modular structure, because we know at the time the City of Liberty was under their process to look at their downtown area, and so we weren't sure what was going to happen. We did engage Piper Wind, who's one of our verified architects, to work with us on the modular facility. The modular components were coming in at the same price that we could build a building. It didn't make sense to us, but it was ridiculously expensive for what we were getting. In addition to that, as we were working with the City of Liberty, that is a historical building, and we ran into challenges about, do you have 3 quotes to fix this building? Because they're going to want to know why, because we were saying we needed to basically demolish it because it was cost prohibitive to fix it. Well, they wanted 3 more quotes. They wanted appraise on the property to go before their board to do that. Again, running out of time because now we're, you know, way into the summer and fall. And so working with the judge, we said, okay, here's option C, which is we have property on Schrader Road next to the Planning and Zoning Commission. It is a vacant lot. It's perfect. And it's conducive with the neighborhood and the cemetery across the street. We can share the parking lot with our Planning and Zoning building. We won't have to incur that cost. Does this work for you? And so then we worked with Piper Wind to just sort of with the judge do a concept and go out to solicit quotes from our 3 construction verified companies that we work with to do a design build. And that's where we are today. Those came in right around Christmas. We had 3. The Wilson Group was the lowest, and we met with them this Monday to go through and say, okay, can we fine tune this? You know, we got to where we're talking about types of windows, what type of material on the building. And so they're going back and sharpening their pencil and doing some things, but after meeting with the judge on Monday also, there were some things we missed, like the fence in the backyard, we had set a 4-foot fence. Well, in talking to them and their needs, it's like, no, it really needs to be a 6-foot fence for security reasons with children in the playground. So those kind of things. And so the Wilson Group is going back. So right now what you see here is a design build estimate with what we have right now, but we know they're going to tweak it, is $567,000. We'd also have an agreement for an owner's rep with Piper Wind to represent us and do functions and inspections and change orders. And then we have security equipment. Again, same thing like we do have the alert. We have to have cameras, we have to have the card readers, and so that would be agreement. And then we're not really buying any furniture or on the inside of this project, but for equipment, they do sort of have a little service area where they have a sink, and so it would be an under-counter refrigerator, a microwave, a coffee maker, because again, they have children there, right? And they may have medicines they need to take care of, or they may need to have to do snacks. So again, not a lot, just a, you know, sort of a, you know, college refrigerator, a microwave, a coffee maker, and then they do have a training room that the judge talked about, and so we were proposing to put a TV in so they could do training and a whiteboard. So that's really, when I talk about equipment in that building, that would be it. But again, the total on that is $646,167. So that is a deficit, which is why we're asking right now $150,000 of ARPA money to go towards this project. Now, we're fine-tuning those numbers with Wilson and everybody else, and we'll come back to you next week with showing you what does the design of that building look like, the concept, and fine-tune those numbers. So that is our recommendation on how to move forward with the unallocated funds. I'm happy to answer any questions, commissioners' thoughts, where you want to go, what do you want to do?
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes, thank you. So I appreciate all the work you put into this, and I'm happy with all these suggestions and moving forward with this. my biggest concern, I've shared with you all the time about this, but we know of several counties and cities that get free money, whether it's federal money or grants or whatever, and end up not spending it all. End up leaving money on the table, having to give it back. That's my biggest concern. I don't want to have to do that with any of this money. I want to make sure that we're spending all this money and that we have a plan B and a plan C in case one of these falls through, we end up with more money left on the table than we thought. Because to me, that's just poor management. If we're given money and don't spend it, that's just poor management. So that's my biggest concern. As long as we have plans in place, that's really my concern, and obviously you've addressed that. So I'm happy with all these suggestions myself. Thank you.
And that's why I certainly believe wholeheartedly that the recorders, digitizing the books is a high priority project, and it's great. It's one that's been a desire of the office for a number of years, and so doing that, but it is the perfect project for us to do exactly what you said. Is if we have savings on another project, then we can add it to there and digitize a couple more books or index a few more. And so that, to me, is the project that we've identified. The other project that is listed here that could be is you could, depending on how much comes through, you could also fund the wages and benefits for tourism in 2026. Right, so this list gives you two options. You can do one or the other, or you can split the money and do both, but it does give the county flexibility as we go through the next year and close out those projects and utilize all those funds that we receive.
You mentioned digitizing those documents. It made me think of something, and I didn't know anything about this, but I know that the county prosecutor today was talking about how they want to go fileless. I don't know what that entails. I don't know if that's the same kind of thing, digitizing stuff or whatever. But if you need more options, I'm just maybe check with him too. If we need a plan B or C and there's more money out there, that might be another something.
And certainly will. I'll be happy to check with them. I don't know what that looks like, whether it is files or whether it's how they do operating and not use paper and shuffle it around.
Yeah.
The key is I have to bring you contracts next week or the week after for you all to approve and get signed to obligate those funds. And as I said, with the Court of Deed, we've gone through a full RFP process. We have a contract ready to come to bring to you. And so that's where we're trying to get those things in place for you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. First, kind of following along that line, I would just note, and I think you noted correctly, that tourism category offers a second line there. In my mind, particularly with the marketing and that promotional budget, if I remember, most of our spending goes into smaller markets around Kansas City. That is easily expandable if necessary, if those dollars are there. And Megan and the recorder can fight it out in some fashion, but just to note that option is available.
That's correct. And by freeing up the 2025 wages and benefits and moving it down with that strings attached, because what happens now, what we've done the last 2 years and what we proposed in 2025 with the marketing piece that is in the 25 budget is because we're a DMO status, right? And so we try and, again, we want to maximize our local dollars. And so we're trying to get money out of the state, which they do for our marketing. And there are restrictions. We have to advertise so many miles away from the Kansas City area, but there are some restrictions. And so this does, by doing what's being proposed, gives us a lot more flexibility.
Absolutely, and certainly with some of the co-branding budgets that the state has, that's another avenue. So that sounds great, and that's perfect. The only other thing, though, and you addressed it, but I just want to come back to it just for a moment, is that furnishing number for the transition facility. I understand the equipment and what you listed. Now, I've not been into the existing transition facility. I do not know how pristine those tables and chairs and whatnot are. I just want to put out there that it would not surprise me if someone said, hey, we need some new couches and tables and chairs because we have a brand new building and the furnishings look like they're as old as what's as the existing building is now. So I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah. And just Commissioner McCall, so they're not in, the house anymore, right, which might have had some. They're actually over in juvenile justice, like in a very large room like this with hard chair, and it's not conducive at all. I do
Yeah.
know their plan is, because when you see the design, there are little individual rooms for families to get together. And
Right.
they, so they want beanbag chairs, and they want chairs, and, and they have lots of toys, so I don't know exactly what they have, but if it is a desire of the commission that you want us to rejiggy, we can certainly,
Well,
rejiggy and put, I'm sure they would love that.
Well, I just want to acknowledge and support what our colleague just said. I have no issues with these projects that have been presented. I understand the strategy, it makes sense to me, but I also want to be realistic, and I might as well be realistic up front that I've never seen anyone build a new building and bring in the old stuff into it, right? I've never seen that. Now, maybe they did it in California, but I'm kind of doubtful because the taxes out there buying new stuff is out through the roof, but I just want to at least acknowledge that, and I guess suggest that I am prepared for that number to change, because I'm pretty sure it will.
And I appreciate that, because if this is the desire of the commission and you do approve the contract with Wilson, and then it's an obligated, and if it goes over and we have funds, you could move funds here also.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I should say, because, we appreciate the patience of the judge and everyone who's in that program for being displaced for as long as they have. According to Wilson, again, a little bit, that their thought would be they also would break ground in February, and their intent was depending on weather, they possibly could be in their building the 1st of June.
Oh, wow, okay.
So that would be great.
That is great.
Yeah.
Well, again, I'm fine with your strategy. I think it makes a lot of sense, and look forward to when it comes back. Thank you.
I'll close out the comments. Obviously, if someone else wants to jump in, they're more than welcome. But once again, I sound a little like a broken record here, but this is once again an example of how Clay County, I think, has done excellent work. Certainly yourself and the staff administrator, but also I would be neglectful not to mention our auditor, who has done a sterling job on not only making sure the process moved, but his ability to wade through the Byzantine regulations that the federal government seems so adept at generating. And once again, like I say, this is an area, and there are no names, but there are area counties that are perhaps not doing as good a job with spending what has been given to them. And I certainly share Commissioner Johnson's thought process. If we send back 7 cents, that's probably way too much for me. But appreciate the hard work. This has been a very long and arduous trip. We've been through a lot of different iterations, and there was obviously another program that preceded this one, but we seem to be coming to the end of this process once again with Clay County. I think being perfectly appropriately held up as an example of how you do this right. I particularly like the contingency plans of how we spend money that might well come in from projects that come in under budget. I don't think it could have been done in any more of a professional and a wonderful way. And like I say, certainly everybody on staff, the elected officials, like I say, particularly the auditor, I think have done such a great job that, I don't know, these two discussions, I was just making me feel really, really good about Clay County.
Well, I would say the county has certainly, I believe, the commission has spent the funds wisely. We have been able to catch up a lot when it comes to stormwater and roads and bridges, and also deferred maintenance on our buildings. And so I think that is the benefit to the county, and we're certainly going to miss it when it's done. And I agree, the auditor, I get the fun part of presenting to you and working with departments and how do we want to spend the money and make it. He has to do all the red tape, and, when all of the payments come in and do all the reporting, which, the federal government has all their, cross their T's and dot their I's. And so appreciate all of that. I think it's been a good process, and I think the county has benefited well, including our partners across the county and what they've done with the funds.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, just real quick, you've been doing a great job with this, Diane. I appreciate all the work you've been doing. I just do want to say, though, we're coming up on deadlines on some things, and I never want the commission to be the issue when it comes to a deadline. In other words, if we're not meeting on a certain night because, or you can't get something done because we're not it doesn't fit into our Thursday schedules or something. I just want to throw out there, we can always call some kind of, I don't want to call it an emergency session or something, where we just need 4 of us, right, to make it a quorum. We can make that happen, I'm sure. If we're ever coming up, we'd rather do that than, throw money back. So just, that option's out there for you.
And I appreciate that. I will say that the teams that are involved in these projects that we're talking about here and the last ones that we need to get bid, like John's bid that opening, everybody is, and the lurk you'll see next week, everybody is working very diligently to gather all of that and get that information in front of you all so that we take advantage of that. So, but we appreciate that if that would be the case, to call a special meeting before the end. But it's very interesting. I was on a webinar call, and I think I mentioned Commissioner Lawson. This is how stickler they are. So, even if you obligate and your elected body approves a contract, at the end of December, if the signatures, either the commission or the vendor signs it in January, it's not eligible. So I'm like, well, we'll make sure that does not happen for us. So everybody's working very, very hard to get that done. So I guess
my pen is ready, so you
good.
let me know.
Yeah, we know where you live. So I'm looking for consensus that the commission is good with this particular proposal as presented. We will be fine tuning it, so when we come back next week, you may see some numbers flip around a little bit, but these are the projects that we are proposing. And so if I've got consensus with that, then we'll move forward.
I believe so. I was just looking around and I saw head nods all around, so I believe, unless there's anything to the contrary, that you have the consensus of the commission. Very well. That brings us to the end of our discussion items. Next, our county administrator comments. Administrator?
Thank you.
If your voice is not worn out.
Well, I'm sitting down now, so that's fine. So I just have a couple of items. The first item has to do with the first meeting in January 2nd, which is Thursday. That is the date that you all picked for your oath of office. So we are getting ready to organize that event for you. It would be at 4:30 here in the commission hearing room. I believe I sent out to you that we have Judge Fluke, presiding judge, that will be doing the oath of office, unless you have someone in particular that you would like, so please let me know so we can create that program. There has been discussion or should be comments back to me from commissioners that because it is the oath of office and because we will have a reception, there's been some wish that not to have a business meeting that evening, that simply do the oath of office and have the reception and then be done. There are 5 Thursdays in January, so I'm kind of looking for the commission to give me some insight. Is no business meeting that first Tuesday, but then we would have a business meeting that 5th Thursday. Is that kind of what everyone's thought
Do
process is?
we have consensus on them? Seeing head nods all the way around. Commissioner Johnson, hold on, let me put you on. There you go.
So I'm fine with that. My only concern is we're going to be off that Thursday before as well, right?
Is the...
That's December.
The last Thursday in December?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that'll put us basically 3 weeks in between. And as long as, my only concern is I don't want us to hold up anything that staff needs to get through. Even if it's, hey, just 3 or 4 of us will stay behind and push through whatever we need to push through.
On the 2nd?
To get bills paid or whatever. And
That's great to know, because you're exactly right. That's one of the concerns that we have, is making the approval on any invoices, because we do cut off early in December and it's closing of the year, and certainly I think the auditor can answer that. But if we know that we have some flexibility there, that if we need to get something approved as opposed to waiting to official business on the 9th, that would be great. Well, we'll try to make that happen, but you're right. We don't want to impact any of our vendors, and that would probably be the most critical thing that comes to mind right now.
yeah, and that's pretty much rubber stamp. So I know there's people that got people coming in from out of town, that kind of stuff, and certainly wouldn't want to stop those celebrations. But for some of that stuff, we don't need everybody here, I don't think. I think we just get by with 4 of us, the rubber stamp stuff.
I'll just throw in Victor Hurlbert, Clay County Auditor. Every year we have an end-of-year payment process, and we plan on, backdate from what is the last commission meeting of the year. So in this case, it's the 19th. So we've well communicated across the county that if departments are expecting that a check be sent to their vendors in 2024, that it needs to be on the 19th meeting. So as far as that is concerned, we've addressed that. You're right. I mean, there will be a delay if there's no meeting in the last week of December, first week of January. But that being said, kind of like we talked about yesterday, we do have a relatively faster process now. So as far as meeting, say a net 30 invoice, I think we'll be fine. I don't see any issue from that standpoint. So those are my 2 cents on it.
Good. Do you think, Commissioner, do you think that perhaps we should be thinking in terms of a fallback position? In other words, have a couple of days that all commissioners are aware of where there, if necessary, would be called. Do you think that's something that would be prudent, or does that kind of take your point a bit further than you?
Well, I think it's up
feel?
to the county administrator. If she thinks there's something that needs to be done, we can figure out a way to get it done. My concern is the 3-week break in between. Certainly, I want the commissioners who are being sworn in that day to be able to celebrate and go and spend time with their family, particularly out of state, that you don't be stuck here. But again, I don't want to hold up staff and things have to get processed. I hated it when I was in the staff's position and we couldn't get this stuff done because, in my case, the city council wasn't going to meet again for another couple of weeks. So I don't want to be that guy. So if there's if you see a need for us to have a meeting with just at least 4 of us or whatever, or another meeting at a different time, we could talk about that. But if we can get it all done ahead of time on the 19th, then we'll be good.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and we'll just continue to monitor that. And if it looks like something, comes up, then we'll certainly want to make sure we do our public notice and let everybody know. And it may just be sort of an odd time. I prefer not to do that unless direly needed, because I think in the best interest for the public, they get used to Thursday nights at 6 o'clock, and I think that's important. And so when you have a meeting that's off of that, I'd like to make sure that the public is aware of when we meet. But we certainly have the ability to do that, and it would be, an exception and not the norm, but for a specific purpose. So thank you.
Commissioner Lawson, I think you wanted to say something?
The only thing I was going to say was that there'd only be 3 of you, wouldn't there? It's us and Megan and John.
Well, if one more wanted to stay behind, and I imagine it'd probably be one of those 10-minute meetings.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's special for us, and next time it's going to be special for you. And I just, and it may not be on Thursday, but I don't see that it's a big deal. Before I even brought it up or talked to anybody about it, I talked to the auditor and said, look, what could happen here? What could fall through the cracks? And because of the holiday, they were going to bring everything to the front earlier. So we didn't have that to worry about. So I think it's unfair to ask one of them to stay behind. I'm sure in the heck not going to. I can promise you that. But, maybe Megan or John would be nice enough to do it, or Jason. But, I just think that's unfair. But I think that we'll be fine. And if we had to have a special meeting the next day or something, no big deal. We could always do that too. So, anyway.
Commissioner, Administrator, I don't know if you were finished with your comments, but I wanted to get back to you now.
Thank you. Yes, I wasn't quite talking. And so we're talking about holidays, and so we're going into the holiday season. And so we talk about this every year about holidays and when do we observe holidays and close, and when do we not close, and do we close early, do we not close early, so Thanksgiving, we always, in our handbook is, Thanksgiving, the day after Thanksgiving. And so we always kind of talk when it comes to Christmas, right? And what day does Christmas fall on? And then what do you do about, so we have Christmas Day off, or those who have to work it get the holiday, 8 hours holiday. But what do we do about Christmas Eve? And so some office holders, who kind of sort of do their own thing. Some close early, and that creates some challenges for our employees who are here 8 to 5. And so, we're discussing and want to talk about, do we close early on Christmas Eve, say at noon or 3 o'clock? So we kind of have some consistency across the county. Now, I will say, one of our challenges is it is tax time. And there are only so many days towards the end of the year that people can get in here and pay their taxes. However, we also want our employees to have an opportunity to enjoy their families and be home at Christmas. So, I'm kind of throwing that out. We kind of want some feedback from the commission if there's interested. I would suggest that if it is a desire of the commission to consider doing something on Christmas Eve, that we don't just do it once a year, but if this is going to be a policy, then we should look at changing the handbook and say, whatever we're going to do on Christmas Eve, we're either going to work a half day on Christmas Eve, so everybody in the county, because again, we're a 24/7 operation, so if we give holiday hours, we give holiday hours to everybody. And so if it's the desire of the commission to do something on Christmas Eve, then is it, close at noon? Then I would, if it's Christmas Eve is Monday through Friday, then I would suggest we change the handbook and that's what we do. And we can advertise that and make sure that the public knows. Or if your desire is, well, we'll close early and we get 2 hours of, whatever that is. But I would recommend if we're looking at, if it's your desire to do something, I would say not do it, are we doing it this year? Are we not doing it next year? But let's have some kind of policy in the handbook and be consistent so we can make sure the public knows from year to year. So just kind of want to get, at some point, just some thoughts. Certainly not asking for any direction or anything, but whatever your thoughts are, we'll come back with whatever you're suggesting. But I want to throw that out there.
Commissioner Withington, thank you for your patience. You are recognized.
I'm all for closing at noon, letting our county employees enjoy their family. If we need to update that handbook, let's do that. And then, if there's a taxpayer who can only pay their taxes on Christmas Eve between 12 and 5, I will gladly be the one to make the motion to approve their waiver if they're late. Next year, we allow prepayments. What is that? March through September. So I really am not too worried about anybody being pissed off at us because we can't let them pay their taxes on Christmas Eve. So yeah, I'm all for giving our employees half a day off. And if we need to update our policy, let's do that.
Counselor, we were discussing basically scheduling, which my understanding is that we're within our rights to do as far as sunshine law goes. I just want your verification that allowing this to continue, does that still keep us on the right side? Because now we're starting to get into a little bit of a different area, and I just want your call on that.
Well, obviously, I mean, it's not a notice topic. It's under county administrator comments. I think she's throwing the issue out there and getting some discussion, and there's some. But it needs to come probably back, maybe think about it and give her some feedback next week or the week after, or maybe next week.
Well, I'd say next week, because if it's something that the commission is interested in doing this year, I would like to bring it back next week and figure out what you're going to do, so we can let employees know and let the public know, right? So, all I'm asking is sort of, a feedback to me. I will listen, and I will bring you back something on the agenda next week that will be, publicized. So as an agenda topic.
So Mr. Counselor, is this pretty much where we should leave it at the moment? Just
it feels like we've done exactly what the intended use was here, and so it's coming back next week. I think that makes the most sense, is to kind of round this part of it off.
Next item is going to be commissioner comments, and unless there's something that needs to be added to this, does anybody want to comment when it comes to this? Commissioner Johnson, you're still on, so I assume that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we allowed to comment on this topic? Or give opinions or feedback?
I would like can they give me an opinion? Because, or you can send it to me, and then I'll gather them all up and come back with something for an agenda topic next week. But I would like some feedback from commission,
So
if you want me to put something together.
Can I just throw out some concerns that I have?
So knowing that it's going to be on for next week, I think it's okay to say a few things.
Yeah, because
it's going to be on for next week.
We're not deciding anything and making any policy tonight. We'll discuss it more next week, which, by the way, I won't be here next week. So
That's right.
my family and I did just watch The Grinch last night, so maybe it wore off on me a little bit. But here's my thoughts on this. First of all, let me ask, what does it cost? So not everybody in the county, not every county employee can take Christmas Eve off. Some are required to work, obviously, the law enforcement, that kind of stuff. what does it cost the county for, and we're going to have to grant everybody that holiday time?
So here's our practice on what we do when a holiday comes up, right? Because we're a 24/7 operation. And so what happens is, last week, everybody got 16 hours of holiday. So you have holiday coded. If you're off, then you code it and you use your holiday hours and they go away. If you work it, those holiday hours are still there and you get to use them at some other time.
Right. So people can't take that day off. As a matter of fact, we give them holiday pay, holiday time.
We give them personal time. So if an employee wanted, if we're open on Christmas Eve and somebody wants, even if we're open just half the day and they want the whole day off, they would take 4 hours of vacation. And it's not uncommon around holidays that different offices go down to skeleton crews.
Well, and that would be my suggestion is, we give them the time to take off. We give them the holiday pay to take off. If we were to add additional holiday pay, that's going to cost us some money. In other words, we're granting them extra time, and we're not causing them to use their own time. We're going to pay them, right? So, we'd have to do that across the board for all employees. You can't just give some employees extra holiday, not everybody.
No, every employee, your deputies, they would all get the 4 hours if that's what we're talking about.
So 400, 500 employees, whatever it is we have, would all get 4 hours of paid holiday time or whatever.
They would accrue the holiday hours and then they would take them at some point in time. And the theory is you're paying them, to some degree, if they're working those 4 hours or if they're off and you're paying them their holiday hours and then you subtract the 4 hours. So the time that it costs the county additional money really is when you have to backfill a position, right? So for example, you're familiar with this, the police department or sheriff's offices, I have minimum staffing on the street. I have minimum officers that I have to have out on the street. And so if a bunch, let's say if it's 10, and I usually have, 12 people assigned, but 5 of them have taken and want to take vacation, then I've got to backfill to make sure I get my minimum staffing. So then I'm bringing people in and I'm paying overtime or I'm giving them comp time.
Right.
So there are a few that have those functions that if somebody's gone, I'm going to have to bring somebody in to fill in. We have to have so many detention officers. We have to have communication officers. So some of those positions, we may have to pay, when I'm off on vacation, somebody may have to come in and fill my seat, and so they may get overtime. That's when it will cost us additional dollars.
So just to back the napkin calculations here, it looks to me like it'd be a gift of almost 50,000 plus in taxpayers' dollars to make this happen. Which the problem I have is we have a system set up now where employees are given time to take off. They even personal leave, whatever we're calling it, and they can take Christmas Eve off. My suggestion is that we allow anybody who wants to take it off that can, go down to skeleton crew, like you said, take it off. And let's face it, my thought is, when I worked, each department had their different supervisors and leaders that kind of made decisions for their department. And let's face it, everybody had, hey, we're going to slide out a little bit early today. It's not an official thing, but hey, it's Christmas Eve, we're going to slide out a little bit early. It's not an act of the commission or the city council or anything like that. It's, hey, you know what, it's Christmas Eve, we got all our work done, we're going to slide out a couple of hours early today, and it's not an official deal. That's how it was played a lot when I was working, and I don't mind that myself. But to grant, everybody in the county 4 hours extra holiday pay, I don't think that's a smart thing to do. And I don't think it's something we can look at as we look at future budgets and employee pay and benefits, that kind of stuff. But I don't like it when we as the commissioners arbitrarily say, hey, I think we should give everybody the day off or the half day off. I think that causes a lot of issues for us. And so, not that I don't want them to have the day off, but I think there's a way for everyone to get that day, most people to get that day off if they wanted it, but with their own holiday pay or, you work it out with your supervisor on how we're going to make this work or flexing some hours or something. So I'm not saying everybody has to work Christmas Eve, but I think there's a better way of doing it without the commission getting involved. Just my thoughts.
Mr. Counselor, once again, it feels to me as though we are engaging in conversation and discussion that has not been noticed. I think it's a good discussion to have, don't get me wrong, it's something we need to be talking about, but it is not noticed. And we are now using comment time to engage in a discussion. I'd like your opinion on that.
You know, if I may interject real quick, when we talk about this sunshine law.
No, actually, I'm making a parliamentary inquiry. You can certainly talk after that, but that is I think we need to get this straightened out.
I don't disagree, Presiding Commissioner. I mean, generally speaking, items of public discussion should be noticed up, so the public that might want to be involved gets to be involved. The county administrator has indicated that this item will come up next week as either an agenda topic or discussion topic on the agenda, so that there will be a more robust discussion or the ability for that next week. Where we are now, I think I would certainly encourage that happen, so that, you know, even employees or people at home who see this would, you know, and may want to have some input can. You know, I agree that during county administrator comments, kind of a more robust discussion of a topic isn't typical and probably isn't within the parameters of the Sunshine Law, and so that as much as we can round it off would be preferable.
And I tried to give as much latitude to Commissioner Johnson because I realized he's not going to be here and able to participate. So I've tried my best to give him the latitude to express his opinion, given that circumstance. But I think at this point we need to go back to where we are in the agenda, which is not discussion items, but under comments. And certainly commissioners are welcome to comment how they please. But I think we need to get back on the track here because, as I said, we are engaging in discussion. We are not on the discussion part of the agenda. We are discussing an item that has not been properly noticed, in my opinion.
One other thing I would suggest, and you just hit on it, is obviously commissioner comments are next, and those comments may take a wide range of topics.
Totally.
Any commissioner may add to them from there.
And that's what I'm thinking is that while, you know, I think if a commissioner cares to express their opinion on this or any other subject, they are absolutely within their abilities to do so. When we get into discussion, that strikes me as going back over an item that we've already closed on our agenda. So with that, Commissioner Thompson.
Well, I didn't finish. My mic's still hot. I still had a comment on the sunshine law.
I'll tell you what, let me go to you first. Let's go ahead and we'll make this, we'll do commissioner comments. I'll put you under commissioner comments and we'll go that way. But you understand my concerns, Commissioner?
Yeah, and I don't think you understand the sunshine law. The whole purpose.
Hold on a second. Administrator, what were you going to say?
I'm sorry, I was just going to wrap up my comments, and I'm changing topics.
Well, can I do mine first, because this might make a difference on whether or not we have further discussion on this. The whole purpose of the sunshine law.
No.
I want to talk.
If you have an inquiry, the thing is, this is right now, this is administrator comments time. The administrator has the floor.
We're talking about the sunshine law, and I want to talk about the sunshine law.
If you want to make an inquiry of the counselor, you're certainly welcome to.
Okay, this is my inquiry, counselor. The sunshine law is to do exactly that. Shine the sun on what's going on, so the public can see what the commission is talking about. So the option that we have here is we don't discuss this in public and let people say it, is we wait until this is over and we each go and talk to Diana in private and say, this is my opinion on this. And the public doesn't get to know our opinions. We're going to talk about it all in private. That is contrary, 100% contrary to what the sunshine law is about and why it was designed. It was so we can have these discussions in public. And to say that, hey, what the law is dictating is for us to go in private and talk to this about this topic in private. I'm not done.
Do you have an inquiry of the council? Do you have a question of the council? Because that's why you were asking.
That's right. I'm getting there.
Okay.
So what the option here is, to me, completely contrary to the sunshine law, and it's saying, hey, to be in compliance with the sunshine law, we have to go in private now and discuss this in private with, and maybe even individually, 3 or less of us with the administrator, so nobody else can hear us what's going on. Because that's what the sunshine law requires. That's asinine. Let's face it. And so my question to you is, do you agree with me?
I think I will say you're half right. I think there are two big components to the Sunshine Law. One is the public's business should be discussed in public, and that's what we're doing here, right? The public can be here, we've got the video running, the public's business should be discussed in public. But the other part of that is that the public has a right to know what's going to be discussed in public should they wish to participate with their government. And that's the part that's missing
That's
on
the
a
noticing
more
part.
robust conversation on this right
That's the noticing part that we're required to do.
Yes.
When we're able to, and that's what the Sunshine Law says. When practical, we can do that. But the Sunshine Law is clear that there are times when we can't notice it ahead of time. And like this, Christmas Eve, the suggestion was, hey, we're going to be able to Christmas Eve. It just came up. We didn't have time to notice that because we had a commission that said, hey, we need to give everybody Christmas Eve off. And so now we got to talk about it because Christmas Eve is coming up.
This certainly could have been noticed up. I mean, there's no question this could have been noticed up. That's obvious, right? Christmas didn't sneak up on anybody this year. It never does. Maybe. We certainly could have noticed this up. Typically, there are when conversations of the public nature happen on less than 24 hours notice or aren't noticed up, it's because they're an emergency. Such as we've had situations in the past where we had flooding in Mosby, for example, and we had to pull everybody in on very little notice. Tornadoes, things that have to happen on very short notice, true emergencies. But just because in the middle of a meeting a topic gets raised doesn't mean that we get to just bypass notice requirements just because a topic gets raised, because a topic can get raised at any meeting.
So if I'm hearing you right, then you're suggesting then that the Sunshine Law is telling us that we should do this in private and not let the public see this.
I said it should. I think there are two parts, and it should be done in public as much as practical, but it also needs to be noticed so the public gets to know.
But are we in compliance with the Sunshine Law then if we leave this meeting and we talk to Diana in private about this?
Of course.
Yeah, see, that's ridiculous.
I mean, it is compliance. I mean, that's the way the statute's written.
Yeah. I don't think that was the intent, but okay.
Administrator, we are currently, just in case anybody's lost track, we are under County Administrator comments. Those are your comments. Please proceed.
Thank you. Just to remind the commission that the next meeting of the commission is next Wednesday, a special meeting, a workshop at 9 o'clock here in the hearing room on December the 11th, and it is a budget workshop to talk about the law enforcement fund budget and the parks budget. And then the commission's regular business meeting will be December 12th, which is Thursday evening at 6 o'clock here in the hearing room.
Okay, now we will go to Commissioner comments. Commissioner Withington, we will start with you and work our way around. Please, if you have any comments, please proceed.
So hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. I did. It's been, 2 weeks since we last met. A lot's happened. Bitcoin hit 100,000. McDonald's brought back the McRib, and something Jay and John really were happy happened. USC lost to Notre Dame 49-35. I think that's why John's not here. He says he's
a Sunshine Law. Let him talk about this in public.
John claims to be sick, but, I think he just didn't know what I probably had planned after last year. They played the video. So, sorry I wasn't able to attend the Keystone Award today, but want to say congratulations to my friends Bob Martin, Aaron Wendell, and Brooks Brown of KC Fiber for winning a Keystone Award in North Kansas City. After I toured their facility earlier this summer, I immediately submitted a Keystone nomination for them. They have an awesome facility down there in Northtown. And also want to say congratulations to Cold Storage at Rush Creek on their Keystone Award. I toured their facility 2 days before Thanksgiving. They said I was the first commissioner to be down there. It's a very impressive facility. They're investing $60 million into it, and once it's fully done, they'll have 220 full-time employees. They had an ask of the county. I relayed that to staff, so thank you, staff, for digging in and taking a look at that. And they also have an ask of the state, and newly elected State Senator Maggie Nurnberg and newly elected State Rep Marty Jacobs will be working with the state on that. So congratulations to everybody else who won also. And, you know, Jay, since John's not here, I'll just say maybe one of these days while we're on the commission, USC will win a game against Notre Dame.
Commissioner Lawson, do you have comments?
Yes.
You're recognized.
Now I can say anything I want, right? As long as I'm not cursing or something like that, right? Okay, here's what I'm going to say on my commissioner comment. First of all, I want to say a big call out to our prosecutor, because lately I've kind of been going through and looking at all the crime that we've had. That poor guy is working from dawn to dusk, I think, with all that he's got going on. I think he's a great example of what you want your prosecutor to be, and I think that he has helped deter crime in Clay County, because they know if they mess up, he's going to do something about it. So I'm real pleased with him, and I think he's doing a super job. The other thing I want to say is I think that we should let our people go home at noon. They used to do that at Southwestern Bell when I worked. Now, there was always a problem, because if somebody had a repair problem, somebody had to stay behind and you know, work. Our supervisors, when I was in the business office, used to say, you guys go home, we'll take care of the calls. So that was always nice, and it was such a rewarding feeling. In our environment, there are, like Diana said, we're 24/7, can't get away from it, but we're not spending money. She and I had a brief discussion about this today, and they're going to get time off. So if a guy's working down in the jail and everybody else gets to go home and he has to stay there, then he'll get 4 hours or whatever of free time that he can use at some other time. So I love our staff. I think that they just are so dedicated. And if this is a little something we can do for them and say, yeah, you intended to be here all day, you didn't take a vacation day because you didn't feel like you could, or you had none left, or something of that nature, then they're going to get a chance to go home early. And I just think they deserve it. And so for me, Diana, I would like to see us go ahead and close at noon. That's all I got to say.
Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. I was going to pass, but there's just so much great stuff that I just can't resist. A couple of things. First, you know, I want to recognize the discussion and the attempt to bring some understanding of what we can do and what we can't. But at the base of all of this is, if you're looking for advice from us, notice it up. I think we could have avoided 20 minutes of discussion had that been done. I do recognize both points of view. I recognize the technicalities within each of them, but a lot of that could have just been avoided if we just noticed the thing and been done with it. So I know I got a short timer as the county administrator, but I'm just going to ask her, you know, if you need more advice, notice it, and then we'll give you all you want. But as to the opinion, so I understand the desire, because we do want to be an employer of choice, and I do get that, and any way that we can do that is worth putting on the table. But I also believe that we are here for the public. The public is not here for us. And so there is a fine line between being the employer of choice, doing things for our employees, and not being there for the public. And I do feel like the comments I understand that were made earlier, but I also know that when we heard just a little bit ago that after all the work that we've done to let the people know about tax relief if they are seniors, and there are people who still don't know after months and months and months of putting it out there, how in the world do we expect people to know that if they're thinking, I'm going to get off early on Christmas Eve, I'm just going to go take care of this with the county, that in 12 days there is going to be sufficient notification of that. And I think for me, I am most, I want to be there for the public who expects us to be there. And the only reason, in my opinion, to not worry about being there is in understanding how many people look for us currently. And so I'm kind of looking at the back of the room. Yeah, you. Because I think what would be compelling for me, or in understanding this issue more fully, when we actually have this as a discussion item, is if we have something historically that tells us what sort of activity our facilities have during that time, if it exists. That is helpful, because however many we consistently get for that purpose, whether it's 100 or 1,000 or 1, if I run the risk of creating a hardship for them, even as minor as that can be, I'd like to kind of know going in. So that is my request, and I look forward to that answer next week. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Johnson.
Sorry, there you go. Yeah, I just simply don't think this should be a commission issue for us to even discuss. I think this is an administrator decision, as well as department heads. That's just where I've always thought this should be the administrator, the department heads that figure out what they're going to do on Christmas Eve. I don't think I should be involved in this.
Commissioner Thompson.
No comments, thank you.
Oh. And my comment is pretty much along the lines I think Commissioner Withington had, which was I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. Hope everybody got to spend some time with their families. And really beyond that, I think that pretty much covers it. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you.